Well, welcome to Speaking of Horses. I'm your host, Wayne Williams, and we're ready to go right here with some of the great stories from the horse industry. So join us as we get ready to go Speaking of Horses right here on this station. Well, hi, and welcome to the show. We were recently in New York. We were around Kingston, just a bit north of Hyde Park, for the 50th anniversary of the New York State Horse Council. One of the speakers was a multi-winning jockey, Ramon Dominguez. Let's listen to some of that talk.
Hearing the hooves of the horses hitting the ground, and I knew from that moment that I was going to pursue a career as a professional jockey. However, my parents, as time went by, I was only 13, as I said, and when they realized that I was pretty serious about my intentions of becoming a jockey, they were not too happy about that idea. They had other goals for me. They wanted me to become a doctor and to finish school. So it was a difficult time for me because that's what I wanted to do. So my dad found out that there was a show jumping school, something kind of like this, nearby where we live. And although it was a little bit of a stretch for them financially because there was no extra money in my house, but he did a sacrifice to try to enroll me there, and he asked me, would you be willing to go there? And I said, sure. And I saw that is maybe a way for me to still be connected to horses, which I love the horses. But so anyways, I went there and I did show jumping for a year, and it was a wonderful experience. However, one day I had to take a bus to go to my house after doing the show jumping, and I met a kid that was my age in the bus, and he realized that I was riding horses because I think that I had my helmet in my hand or maybe the whip. So he asked me if I was riding race horses, and I said, no, I'm riding show jumpers. So he said to me, oh, I'm actually learning how to ride race horses. So to me, that was like somebody who wants to play basketball and the kid saying, I'm Michael Jordan. So I, of course, asked him, where is that? And he told me it's not too far from here. There is a training center. So the following day, needless to say, that the boss actually didn't stop in the show jumping school. He continued going to the training center. So I went there and I met some of the trainers, and I expressed my desire to ride race horses, and they gave me an opportunity to get on a horse, and I guess I had some baseline knowledge on being on a horse, and they said, continue to come. So my parents found out that I was going here, and they were supportive, actually. They said, that's okay. So that started my profession as a jockey, and then from there, this kid and I became good friends, and we finished the last 2 years of high school together, and we moved to what we call back home a bush track, like a track really out in the middle of nowhere. It was 6 hours from our house, so we went there, and we slept in a floor like this, a dirt floor in a tack room, and just learning how to ride horses and riding a race here and there. And then I was given the opportunity to get a license at a big racetrack. So I was excited. I rode there for a year and had the opportunity now to come to the US, which was my ultimate goal. In 1996, I came to the US, and that was starting from zero again. I didn't know any English, and I had to adapt to the system here in the US, which I quickly fell in love with how things were pretty systematic and everything was pretty organized. And now, I went over something that was actually very, very, very important. Before I came to the US in Venezuela, I was given the opportunity to work with a guy who was a top agent. Like, the jockeys also have an agent that basically go and looks for the best horses that they can ride. So this guy, although I came out of a promotion with like 43 other young riders, and I didn't have much experience at all, he still saw something on me. He gave me a chance, and I was blown away by having the opportunity to work with this top agent. I didn't know exactly why he showed any interest in working with me. So time went by and I was just riding slow horses, but I didn't know that was something that he intended to be that way, because he wanted me to get the right foundation and learn as much as I could about riding horses before he basically put me on horses with good opportunities. So one day he said to me, Ramon, this weekend, let's see what you got. You're going to be riding a favor for a top trainer, and this is your opportunity. I was so excited. I couldn't wait for the weekend to come to ride this race. And when I came into the paddock to see this horse, it was like, oh my gosh, I mean, beautiful, big, shiny horse. The trainer gave me instructions. I went out there, and I just screwed the race up completely. So I went way too fast, opened up on the rest of the field, and my horse got tired, and I just got beat at the wire. It was awful. I remember coming from the race, and my family actually came to see me this day because they live far away from where the racetrack was, but in anticipation that I was going to win my first race, they went to see me. And when I went into the car, I just started crying and, I mean, sobbing, and I said to them, gosh, my days as a jockey are over. I'm not going to be given an opportunity anymore. And there was a lot of silence in the car. And so the next day, I got up early, and this was the last thing that I felt like doing in the moment, but I knew that it was what I had to do in order to push through this difficult time. And I got up and I got dressed and I went to the racetrack. And out of all people, I went to see the trainer that I rode for the day before. And people were like, are you crazy? You want to see that guy? Heck no. So I went to see him, and he continued to put me on horses to exercise them for a while, actually for like a couple months. And it got to a point where I say, is this guy kind of paying back now, saying, well, you gotta exercise a lot of my horses, but I'm not gonna ride you? Well, guess what? He actually put me on 2 more horses to ride in the afternoon, and both horses won. I was super happy, but I learned that that wasn't really my biggest accomplishment, winning those races. The greatest thing that happened, and this is something that we all can take from this, is in that moment when I made a mistake, I had the opportunity to decide whether to get up the next morning and go to the track, or just to satisfy my mind and say, well, you know what, that was the end of it. I gave it a try. It didn't work out for me. But in that pivotal moment when I got up and I went and faced my fears by seeing the trainer, that allowed me to continue learning and continue progressing. But it also, learning from that mistake was so key that I adopted what I learned, trying to be patient in the races. And then fast forward 19 years, which was the duration of my career as a jockey, I was able to win altogether 5,038 races. So, yes, it is great. Now, I want to go back to when I first came here. Again, I didn't know any English, and starting from zero. And in 2001, as it was mentioned before, that I led the nation by winning the most races. 3 years later, in 2004, I had the opportunity to ride my first Kentucky Derby, and that was just amazing. 2 years after that, in 2006, I actually was riding the Kentucky Derby again, and it's just the most amazing experience riding the Kentucky Derby, because the crowd is so loud. However, as a jockey, you are so focused that you cannot hear anything. It's just you and the horse, and that's it. Now, as you exit the paddock and you go onto the track and they play the old Kentucky home, you can have to cry, and every jockey, regardless if some of them have ridden 20 times, they all get tears in their eyes, because they are so many hours put into the profession to really get to that point. When we're watching on the TV, often even people who are involved in horse racing say, well, he's lucky, he was given the opportunity. But I like to think more in terms of like Malcolm Gladwell said, 10,000 hours is the magic number of greatness. So any one of those guys have put their 10,000 hours to get to that moment. So again, in 2006, I was coming to the half a mile to go, and a horse made a quick move, and mine just jumped, and I said, I got goosebumps. I said, I'm gonna win the Kentucky Derby. Well, I'm following a horse, and this horse just continued opening up, and I had to settle for second. Despite that, I felt like it was a big accomplishment and kind of validation that all the hours and the sacrifices that I put to get to that point were no in vain. I will close with this, that a few months ago, actually in January, my mom came from Venezuela, and she brought, this is a copy, I took a photo because the paper is too valuable for me to be carrying around, but this is a note that I wrote to myself when I was in 10th grade in high school. So I'm going to quickly tell you then about my list that I wrote, and I had it on my priority order. So number one was to be given the opportunity to take the test to become a jockey. And in December was actually the month, and to pass the test. Number two, to become a good jockey, or a big jockey, that's were my words. Number three, to please also help my friends who were in that journey of becoming a jockey. I will fast forward to 3 or 4 that are not really relevant to this, but number 7, which is the last one, is to come to the US and be a champion. So,
well, that's a visit to the New York State Horse Council's 50th anniversary, as we were at HITS in Saugerties, New York, just a bit up the Hudson River from New York City, and a talk with world champion, multi-year champion jockey, Ramon Rodriguez, one of their speakers. Thanks for joining us. Well, that's our show. I'm your host, Wayne Williams. Speaking of horses, we'll be back next week with a brand new show. Or join us at speakingofhorses.com.